Wait.
Welcome, everyone, to the Palm Valley Church Podcast, where we invite God into everyday conversations. My name is Jeannie Grochocki, and today is a really exciting day for me because today I get to have a conversation with my wife, Jeannie. And so we're going to be answering some questions that seem to come up a lot in marriages, and so I hope you enjoy today. It is great that you are here today, though, Doctor. Should I call you Dr. Grochocki, or can I just call you by your first name, Jeannie?
J-Dog?
J-Dog? That's your street name that we go with. Uh-huh. Yeah. That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I know this is kind of personal, but do you enjoy being married to me?
I do. I think you're absolutely wonderful.
Okay.
So,
well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad, because if you'd have said the opposite of that, that'd have made the rest of this podcast a little awkward.
Yes.
So.
20 years, I think I still like you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's going to be 20 years in August, huh?
Yes.
Wow, 20 years. Do you have like a favorite moment of ours over the 20 years that we've been married?
Well, one of our favorite things is when we decided to go to New York.
Yeah.
And we stayed for, I think 9 days?
Yeah.
9 days, something like that. That was epic.
Yeah, it was
really
a birthday
good.
trip for you. And
Yes.
so we went on it, and you're right, that was like a fun trip.
That was really fun.
It was probably like the real first vacation we've ever had almost.
Yes, as we got to do a bunch of things in a short amount of time, like Statue of Liberty and those types of things. So
it was cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. We didn't get to go inside though, but maybe on our next trip.
We'll get back there someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah.
So we've been married for almost 20 years. I feel the same way. It's like been an awesome 20 years. So I still love you too. So that's a good thing.
That's
good.
good.
That we're
That's
both in
good.
this. But we've recently started kind of like this whole marriage nights at Palm Valley. First Tuesday of the month, we just open up. We kind of have a marriage topic, and we get to talk through it with everyone. We've had a lot of couples show up.
It's been really
Have
good.
you enjoyed it?
I've enjoyed it a lot. I think that when we think about marriage and we think about helping others, that's one of our passions. We've always been super passionate about coming and joining and supporting couples. So just through our experiences and those types of things, I think that we're able to bring, we're still young, so we're able to bring a different
Our
light.
daughters tell us otherwise, but we're still young.
Yes, they do. Yeah, I feel super old when I'm around them.
Yeah.
But, so we're able to use our experiences and those challenges that we've had to also, again, support marriages. And we even have couples that aren't married yet that are looking and just, looking at how we
like our producer,
with each
Austin. I mean, he every once in a while has marriage questions, so that's good.
Wow, that's interesting.
Austin's blushing right now. No one can see it on camera, but that's okay.
So how well do you think, as far as your perspective, I mean, you're at church and you meet lots of couples, so how do you feel it's going?
Well, I enjoy it because it's such a wide variety of people. It's very diverse. We've got old couples, we've got young couples, we've got middle-aged, we've got couples that have children, couples that don't have kids at all, couples that are empty nesters. We have couples that come that are really struggling and they're like looking for help. And then we have other couples that are unbelievably amazing who I would say they do marriage better than anybody. And yet they're still there, still trying to just continue to be intentional with their marriage.
Correct.
And I think what I love about it the most is we get a chance to answer questions. That questions get to come up, and we get to just kind of see where people are at in it. And I thought maybe today let's answer some more questions.
That sounds fantastic.
So what I did is I just went and searched for like just common marriage questions.
Okay.
And so I'm going to throw some of these at you, and we'll both kind of answer them and just see where we're at with all this. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
Just making sure. Yeah, you look very nice today, by the way.
Oh, thank you. You're handsome too.
Oh, thanks.
I love your new haircut.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, very nice. Anyway. Okay, first question.
Okay.
Okay, so we have different views on finances, and we disagree about budgets and how money is spent. How can we come to a compromise where we're both happy? Finances is a weird thing for us. It's kind of ironic that this comes up right now.
Be the very first question.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's exactly it. But what would you say? I mean, people fight about money all the time and how to deal with budgets and that. What do you think for you, compromise? What does that look like when it comes to money in a marriage?
Well, first of all, a budget I think is essential. so that everybody that's involved can be on the same page, whether you have children, that are young children or you have high school children. Like, money is essential to be teaching everybody to manage well, right? Being good stewards of what we have. Otherwise, we can just spend it very quickly, and then the arguments are even more severe because there's no money for anything. So that would be the first point. The second point is just, us similar. We have a budget. We talk about it, but being able to be more open and honest about what the budget looks like. And being okay with saying I'm not really agreeing with this portion of the budget, and being able to have a dialogue versus kind of stifling. And so, early on in our marriage, that's kind of how I felt. Like, I hate budgets. I don't want to be on a budget. It makes me uncomfortable. I feel like I'm being a child. I have to, look at every tiny little penny. Why? I want to do Starbucks every day. And so
I'm a grown adult. I can do what I want.
Right. And so when you have those viewpoints, I think about money, it does create a divide. And then there's the lack of communication that happens. So walls are built when there's no communication, right? And so having the open and honest communication centered around the finances is difficult. It's difficult, I think, for both parties. So
I would have answered that exactly the same. I think it's exactly it. You've got to have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, then everybody's just all over the place.
Correct.
And so whether you like having a budget or not, you have to have a plan in place, because without a plan, that's where the arguments come in. And you're exactly right. You then just have to be open and honest about, here's the plan. I don't like this part of it, so we got to figure out this thing together there. Because you're right, some people, they put a budget down and then they just leave it and say, okay, that's it. It's the budget. We're just going with it.
Right.
But I was talking with one of the other pastors the other day, and he talked about every month they sit down and just review. They review their budget. They review their plan to say, okay, does this still work for us? Or is there something that's come up? So last month this budget worked, but this month, well, one of the kids got sick, and so we now have an extra medical bill that we got to pay through. So that has to change our budget. So it's a constant communication with that. That's good. I'm glad we both agree with how to answer that. That's good. All right, second question. So my in-laws, they're too involved, and my spouse doesn't get why that bugs me. So how do I help them see why this is such an issue?
That one's a little more challenging, because you really are dealing with two separate personalities and households, and so blending, that's why we're talking about blending of two families, can be extremely difficult. Some families, it naturally just works, and there's not a lot of work that needs to go into it. And I think it's centered of what the question is asking is, where do you put the boundary?
Right.
So how do you mesh together, and where are the boundaries that you need to take into consideration so that everybody feels like they're a part of the family? So instead of alienating one side of the family and side of the family because you want to spend more time with this other set, it's figuring out and navigating it's a difficult balance to ensure you're not people pleasing, but that you're inclusive. You're including every side of the family.
Exactly. This is a question I would say that everyone dating needs to be asking and talking about. If you're ever even thinking of moving towards marriage, the in-law question is one you need to already be talking about and have somewhat of a solution going into it. And it should be asked along the lines of, hey, how often do you spend just time with your parents right now? So as a single person, when do you see mom and dad? You're a full-grown adult, but do you see them just on the weekends? Do you see them every single day? Or do you make a phone call to them literally every single day? Or I actually only see my parents on Christmas or other holidays. Those types of things need to be discussed right away so that you know, okay, my future spouse, they spend a lot of time with their parents or they spend a little amount of time, because that's what you have to determine right then and there. But then once you get to it, I mean, this is especially if, hey, my in-laws are here and I really cherish their opinion. I really am connected with them. This is something of what we always talk about of a good marriage means I unconditionally love you, meaning I'm all in on whatever you're all in on. And if your parents are a huge part of your life, I can't rip that away from you. If I unconditionally love you, I can't rip that away. So I have to grab a hold of that first. But then the second part of that is I have to be able to, both of us as husband and wife have to understand we now are creating a new family.
Right.
This was your parents and this was the family you know, but to become married, it means you step into another family, which actually takes priority over all families. If your in-laws or your extended families are taking priority, this one may be the tough one, but you are going to struggle in your marriage relationship because your spouse should feel more important than anyone else, more important than your parents and everyone else. And if you're making your parents more important than your spouse, yeah, that one's gonna be tough. So
it is. It'll be tougher to find the boundary, and then no one is happy.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly. You're creating a new family in a marriage. That family has to be the priority. But we also, because I unconditionally love you, I have to be sensitive to how well connected you are with your extended family. So good. That's a good question. It seems to be one that people come up a lot. So
right, for sure.
This put the kids to bed. This may be a little bit of a racy question, but our marriage lacks intimacy. How do we get it back? What do you think on this? If we're struggling with intimacy, I'm not saying we are, but if someone is struggling with intimacy, how do we get it back?
That's that's a difficult question, but I've heard it multiple times in various settings. And so one of the things that I often, when I hear this question, I like to say is focusing on what you like about the person. And so being intentional about, oftentimes I think we get, the further along we get married, we become, we just naturally do things for each other and naturally, I know he's going to say this or she's going to say that. He'll react this way or this way. But being intentional about focusing on good memories and little tiny texts throughout the day, or being intentional about maybe it is a date night.
Right.
Some couples even stop dating. And so it's being intentional about what are you doing with your time when you are with your spouse. And so cultivating that relationship that you spent so much time cultivating at when you were dating and through your first couple years of marriage. So it's continuing that. Yeah. And so you talk a lot about being intentional, and we talk about that in our marriage nights as well. So how were we intentional today? So it's just asking specific questions that your partner or saying, hey, I would love to take you out on a date, go and get your hair done, or, let's get dressed up and go to this favorite place that we like. So it's just, again, that word keeps coming back, being intentional about how you focus on your spouse.
It is. It's such a great thing. If you're putting the effort into something, the results will come from that. But what I loved about all the suggestions that you make in this of whether, it's getting your hair done or making sure you're going on date nights or making sure you're sending texts, and those are all things that people think don't involve intimacy, kind of the physical side of a marriage. People are like, that's separate. But it's not. No. Intimacy is all of it connected with that. Intimacy starts with the words that we say to each other. It starts with the emotions that we actually share and connect that we have. Intimacy, a big part of intimacy is how you're spiritually connected. Are you both coming to this place and understanding that we're a part of something bigger? That obviously we as Christ followers would say God is in control and he's at work and we're a part of the grand story. And if I know that I'm a part of this grand story that God has for my life, but I'm a part of that with you, it makes me more connected to you. And all of that leads to physical intimacy. It's not just a matter of, hey, let's just try to force having sex more often. That
Right.
doesn't change intimacy.
Right.
What changes it is the words we say and the intentionality we put into it and the time we spend together. So, yeah, if it's not there, you're right. I would say it's time to be having more conversations and to be having more in-depth conversations, really speaking about what are those feelings and emotions that you've been hanging on to, that you have not been sharing. And it allows connection at a greater level in that. So that's good.
Absolutely.
Man, you are really smart.
You're smart.
That's probably why you have your doctorate. I know. Okay. Oh, this is a good question. Yeah. The question is, being a newlywed is harder than I thought. We're having trouble adjusting to living together, and I don't know what to do. How can we learn to make compromises and live out this newlywed lifestyle? We seems like we get a lot of questions about newlyweds.
do, a lot.
They have this idea, and then all of a sudden they get married and move in together, and that's not what they thought.
Right.
So how can we help them with this?
This, again, is another question that, like you stated, we do get a lot. How do we mesh two lives together? Especially if someone loves to stay up late and someone loves to go to bed early. So it could be a various vast amount of things. But one thing is just, again, it goes back to the communication.
Yeah.
So being able to communicate effectively takes time and practice, right? So you're not always going to get it right. So say, someone cooked the meal and did the dishes and did everything for the meal, and the other person sits on the couch and is not helping or, even offering to help. The person that seems to be doing everything, gets offended or, I can't believe you're not helping. You must be lazy. So again, communication. I remember us being newly married, being in our apartment, and I was like, oh, why do I have to cook all the meals? Or
Right.
why do I have to do all of this stuff? And you're smiling or whatever, because I know you remember. And so it's just having that conversation. You said, well, you didn't ask,
Right.
so I assumed you liked to
Right.
do it.
Right.
So it's again all back
Yeah.
to communication. Just saying, hey, Mark, would you help me with this?
Right.
And being okay with you saying, hey, can I do it in 5 minutes? Or give me 10 minutes and then I'll be in to help.
Yeah.
So it's and I struggled with that too. Like if I asked, hey, Mark, can you help with this? And you're like, 5 minutes. I was like, I want you to
Right.
do it now. Get up,
Right.
And so, again, it goes back to you're meshing two basic cultures,
Yeah.
two different cultures, trying to put them together to make it fit and work like a system, right?
Yeah.
A clockwork. And so that's my brain. We have creative brains, but I really focus in that everything has a system for me.
Yeah.
But I have to also remind myself that not all of my systems work for you.
Well, what a great way to put that. Meshing two different cultures. We have two people that are radically different, coming from completely different worldviews, being raised completely differently.
Yeah.
Even if it's similar, at the end of the day, they weren't the same household, so you have a different culture that you're meshing. That is without a doubt going to be difficult. So this is a normal problem to come up with all
Yes.
this. But again, I would push on this to be able to. The thing that I walk through with couples in premarital counseling is what I say to them over and over again. You should be asking each other everything right now while you're dating, and literally everything. Like I tell couples, I'm like, hey, do you know how often they brush their teeth during the day? And I've had so many couples that just laugh, like, what are you talking
Right,
about?
right.
And I was like, well, do you know? And inevitably they always say, well, I'm sure, it's after every meal. That's normal. And the other person will look at them going, actually, I only do it when I get up in the morning and right before I go to bed. So I only do it twice a day. And it's like, yeah, exactly. Those are things that you may end up fighting about because you didn't know that about each other.
Right.
So while you're, this is part of the dating process, is ask every question imaginable. Ask about all those habits. Ask about all the hobbies. Ask about how you go about washing your dishes. I mean, do you leave them in the sink for a few days? Do you put them right away in the dishwasher? Do you not like the dishwasher, so you wash them individually? I mean, ask every question imaginable so that when you take these two cultures and put them together after you're married, then in that moment, you're not surprised. Now, there's always going to be something that surprises you, but the more time you talk and have conversations before getting married, the easier this piece is of being able to mesh together. But you're exactly right. Conversation, be able to talk about it. I mean, it's one of those things that I think what a lot of times newly married people do is, I really love this person, and this thing they're doing bothers me, but because I really love them, I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm just gonna push it to the side. It's not a thing we have to talk about right now. When in reality, what I would say is, no, the minute you come across something that it seems to hang on to you and bothers you, stop and talk. Without a doubt, stop and talk about it in that moment right away, to be able to say, hey, hold on a minute. The way you just did that, for some reason, it just stood out to me. Can you just help me with it? Where are you going with that? Is this how you've always done that? Here's how I've typically done that. Do we need to kind of compromise, or do I need to kind of just adjust to that? Be able to talk about it in a normal way, not be able to say, hey, I don't like you because you're doing that.
Correct.
But be able to bring it up in a positive way with that. So I love the making sure we have conversations and intentionally about it. So
Absolutely.
Have them early and often. So Austin, as you're dating, have those conversations, all right? That's what we need for you, without a doubt. Jeannie, do you have like a last kind of, what's like the one thing you would tell couples out there that you would just encourage them in their marriage to keep it strong?
I would just encourage time together, facilitating time together. And I know we keep hammering the communication together, but I think one of the biggest things that I hear on a constant basis when talking to couples or talking to individuals is just the lack of time. Yeah. And so we get busy in our schedules. We're making the money. We're facilitating kids events and church events and friends, and we're navigating all of these things. But in the mix and jumble of that, you become two separate people when you should be becoming one. And so just being concerned with ensuring that the time that you do get to spend together is quality time for each of the partners. So it could mean compromising we love the movies. So you and I love going to movies. And so we go to movies, and that fills us up, and that's couple time. And you love fishing, and I don't like it, but I do love the trees. So a compromise is going camping, and us both being able to enjoy ourselves, but still having that individual time. But making that time daily. I know it sounds really tough, and people's schedules look different, and kids get in the way and obligations. But having said that, like a daily interaction and daily time, just like we're expected to do that, we do that with Christ, and we facilitate our love and our joy and our connection with Him. We need to be doing that with our spouse as well.
Yeah, the thing we say all the time is your marriage relationship should be the most important relationship here on earth. And so that takes priority and precedence over absolutely every other one, including our children, which people don't like it when I say that. It's
very difficult, yes.
They don't like it, but we were together before our children, and we'll be together after the children move out. I mean, ours are already moved out, but for everyone, well, as soon as your kids move out of the house, it's still just the two of you. And so if your marriage is not the priority, it's a difficult life after kids move out in that. So make marriage your priority in that.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Dr.
Thanks so
Grochocki.
much for having me.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll grab you on here another time in that.
Sounds good.
I don't know, maybe we should grab some lunch after this or something. I mean, I'm a little biased, but I really think you're probably my most favorite guest we've ever had on here so far. So just saying that, but thanks. And thank you everyone for joining us here, and we look forward to continuing to connect with you. Have a great week, everyone.